Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into something fascinating in the world of Mr. Love, based on this new book, Les Friponneries de Mr. Love.
That's right. And our sources, well, they're incredibly personal. We're talking stories, reflections, deep thoughts from the author Paul Biton, writing under this very memorable name, Mr. Love.
Exactly. It's quite the collection.
And our goal here is to pull out the really surprising stuff about love, life, human nature from these, well, they're very raw, aren't they? Unfiltered chronicles.
Yeah.
What can we actually learn about being authentic or vulnerable, maybe resilience, from someone who says he just lived in temps small, intensely,
Right.
desperately sometimes, frankly, often. And Friponneries pour toujours, mischief forever.
That's the hook, isn't it? This character, Mr. Love, who seems to have all these adventures, these escapades, but then he often ends up alone, collecting regrets, as he puts it.
Right.
So, okay, let's get into it. Who is this Mr. Love?
Uh-huh.
Well, first off, how does he see himself? He makes it clear he's not an actor, singer, politician,
Mm-hmm.
definitely not one of those life coaches. Nope. He just says he's a man who lived in temps small, intensely. And the nickname, Mr. Love, it's actually an homage to Jerry Lewis.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it wasn't even self-given. It came after he'd already had, quote, a reasonable number of adventures, failures, and memorable nights. So it's a label applied later.
And what's really striking, I think, is how his background, particularly early trauma, it didn't just influence him, it seems to have actively created the Mr. Love persona.
How so?
Well, the book goes back to class 1984. He talks about being le petit juif,
Yeah.
a little Jewish kid facing just brutal bullying, violence even.
Wow.
Yeah, he ended up dropping out of school. He describes this fear clinging to his throat, and he directly connects this profound lack of love in his youth to becoming Mr. Love.
So writing became a survival mechanism.
Exactly. Writing to survive, he says, to feel something, to try and mend those wounds. It's quite an origin story for someone called Mr. Love, isn't it? This deep need born from its absence.
It really is. And it explains those layers you see in him. On one hand, yeah, he's the fripon, the rascal, the trickster.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's this other side, this incredible sensitivity. He calls himself a collectionneur de regrets plié en quatre.
Mm-hmm.
A collector of regrets folded into quarters.
That image, it really stays with you.
It does. It suggests someone way more complex than just the flashy name. Okay, so given that complexity, that background, what did his actual relationships look like, especially with this fear of intimacy lurking?
Well, one thing that keeps coming up is this theme of messages jamais envoyés. Messages never sent.
Right.
Like in Le Message suspendu, he admits he leaves messages in drafts on purpose. He's afraid to revive her, to rekindle something.
He even says he writes things just for not living them, like
Yeah.
sending confessions out just to feel alive, even if no one reads them.
Which says so much, doesn't it, about that internal battle. Wanting connection, but maybe being terrified of what happens if you actually get it. Commitment, confrontation.
Yeah, that fear. And it connects to that other story, Plus rapide que moi, about the woman who could. What was it? Hear what wasn't said?
Exactly. She could read between his lines, understood him too fast almost, and he says that's why he lost her. It pierced his defenses.
And that quote is incredible. Ce n'est pas le mensonge qui tue l'amour, c'est la peur d'être cru.
Right. It's not lying that kills love. It's the fear of being believed. It's such a sharp insight. For him, being truly seen, truly believed. That was the terrifying part. Vulnerability wasn't just exposure. It was like a weapon turned against himself.
And you see that play out in his talks with Salma and Angie early on. They don't hold back, do they?
Not at all. They call him out on being elusive, on sensing things rather than knowing.
Angie notices his hands, saying they've begun too many letters, but always hesitated on the last sentence. That's telling.
And they have these blunt observations about men's lâcheté, their cowardice, and women's innate gift for cruelty.
He even admits it. He says he keeps drafts. He's a collector of folded regrets, just like Angie pointed out.
It's like he lives half in reality, half in these unsent messages.
Like with La lettre jamais envoyée. He writes his letter, admits he can't even remember her name anymore, just her silence before speaking.
But he doesn't send it.
No. He says he wanted her fear, her doubt, her anger, anything but pity.
So the unsent thoughts, the unspoken feelings, they almost become a world in themselves for him. It's where he processes everything safely, internally.
Yet without the risk of actually externalizing it.
Exactly. It's this constant push and pull, longing for intimacy, but deeply scared of what it might actually involve.
Okay, so beyond these internal struggles, His life was also just full of encounters, right?
Oh, yeah.
A real spectrum. What were some of the big ones?
Oh, definitely. Where do you even start?
Well, you have to talk about La Nuit où j'ai tout perdu, right?
Yeah.
The barbecue sauce incident.
Oh, yes. Formative is an understatement.
His best friend Xavier, a betrayal. And it somehow leads him to swear off marriage and kids forever.
His ego, he says, was crumpled like a kebab napkin. It sounds almost comical, but the impact was profound. That specific betrayal really seemed to lock down his views on commitment.
But then you get this complete contrast with Sandrine in Première Nuit, Dernière Étoile.
Right. He was 16, she was 22. A medium.
And she predicted her own death.
Calmly told him she'd die from a brain tumor before 30. And their connection, though short, was incredibly respectful, deep. It was his first.
And what did he learn from that?
He says it taught him the goût de l'attention, the taste for attention, real attention, and l'amour du corps de l'autre, love for the other's body, in a really profound, respectful way. It shows how even brief, tragic connections can teach huge lessons.
Okay, and then there's Lily la Tigresse.
Ah, Lily. That was something else entirely. 15 years, he says. A forbidden game.
Non-attachment. Constant exploration.
Mm-hmm. His whole philosophy with her was ne jamais baiser, toujours faire l'amour. Never just fuck. Always make love. Even in its intensity.
And she sounds like quite the character. Uninhibited, wild,
Yeah.
What was it, 800 to 1,000 conquests?
Something like that. Their encounters are described as incredibly energetic, explicit. It definitely challenges norms around love and connection.
It really does. And speaking of unexpected connections, what about Houston? We have a blonde.
That's a fascinating one. Starts terribly, right? Cindy tries this abortion scam on him.
Yeah, total disappointment.
But then out of that mess comes this 40-year friendship with Gary, the guy who sort of rescues him in Texas.
A friendship born from disaster.
Exactly. He calls it a miracle behind the disaster. It's like the initial shock stripped away pretense and allowed this completely different, genuine, non-romantic bond to form, something he probably wouldn't have found otherwise.
He even had rules, didn't he? That règle trois rendezvous.
Oh, yeah, the rule of 3 dates. He claimed, what, a 98% success rate?
Based on respect, creating memories, and frustration.
Yes. Frustration as an art. He specifically advocated stopping just before intimacy on the second date.
Why? What was the thinking there?
It seems it was about building anticipation, yes, but also about respect, showing control, perhaps, making the eventual connection more meaningful, less routine. It's unconventional, for sure.
And that links to Le Fronde Incongru, where he
Yeah.
refuses to take a woman's virginity.
A really powerful moment. He tells her to save it for someone she truly loves.
That completely flips the script on typical male seduction narratives.
Absolutely. Être un homme, c'est parfois savoir refuser. Being a man sometimes means knowing how to refuse. It shows this unexpected depth of respect, a kind of generosity that redefines his own idea of connection.
He wasn't just about personal relationships, though. He had some pretty sharp takes on the modern world, too.
Oh, definitely. Very critical, like in Critique d'un râteau silencieux.
That story about the man slipping on a condom and people just filming.
Yeah, he despairs over that kind of urban cynicism, that infectitude, gratuitous nastiness. He hated that impulse to capture misfortune for clicks, seeing kids fall on TikTok.
He felt the world was becoming coarse, losing empathy.
Very much so. He disliked the cheapness of effort, the plastic screams, even while admitting he still wanted to create something meaningful himself.
And that ties into his critique in Barbie Barbès et les Miss Univers d'Instagram, right? The attack on superficiality.
Precisely. He goes after the Instagram clones, the sugar daddies, this whole monde devenu stone, a world gone numb, that values plastic appearances over anything real.
Seeing women as Barbie Barbès clones, all luxury and looks.
And lamenting that, being over 50, he felt seen just as a walking wallet. It really raises that question, doesn't it? What happens to real connection when everything becomes so surface level?
He found refuge in writing, though. In Goldorak et Canty, he talks about screenwriting.
As a way to respirer avec les yeux, to breathe with his eyes.
Finding meaning through creativity. Creating his own worlds, even ones where Goldorak hangs out with Barbie, apparently. His art became his way of coping, of breathing.
Yeah, it was his oxygen. And that connects, interestingly, to his wanting to be president. Remember that from Pilote de Chat et Fausse Promesse?
Vaguely, yes. What was the link?
It wasn't just a power fantasy. It seemed tied to his critique of society's absurdities, but also, very strongly, to his defense of animals. He wanted to impose order, especially for abused animals.
So a desire for genuine justice and kindness in a world he saw as increasingly fake.
Exactly. His leadership fantasy was rooted in care, in wanting to fix what he saw as broken and cruel.
So as he gets older, is there a shift? Does he start pursuing connection differently? More authentically, perhaps?
I think you do see an evolution. Take l'anime du téléphone rose.
The mystery voice calling at 3:33 a.m.
Yeah. He gets obsessed, ends up living in this empty apartment, haunted by the voice, prefer the idea of her, the mystery, to the actual woman.
So still drawn to the unknown, maybe avoiding the messiness of reality.
Initially, perhaps. But then you get to Lola, and Lola feels like a turning point.
Right. Lila au bar de minuit, their first meeting.
Their banter is sharp, witty, and she makes that observation about herself. J'ai souvent un talon en retard. I'm often a heel behind.
Contrasting with him always being une phrase en avance, a sentence ahead.
Yeah, it sets up this dynamic of intuition, of unspoken understanding between them.
And then, in Le Voiture de Lola, that crucial moment happens.
Where he subtly gets rid of her companion.
Yes. Leading to their first really raw, real night together.
Yeah.
And then her note.
Slipped into her shoe, powerful words. Je suis resté assez pour que tu me manques, mais pas assez pour que tu me rattaches.
I stayed long enough for you to miss me, but not long enough for you to tie me down. Wow.
But his reaction is the real key. He looks at the note and thinks, Tu ne m'as pas manqué, tu m'as complété.
You didn't make me miss me.
You completed me. That's a huge shift, isn't it? From seeing love as filling a void, chasing something missing, to seeing it as something that reveals or completes yourself. It's less about loss, more about self-discovery through connection. A real aha moment.
Then there's Nina, the woman in the library reading his book.
Nina, Rayon Literature Étrangère. And she gives him that sharp critique. He wrote not to seduce, but to apologize.
Ouch. But true, maybe.
Perhaps. They have this intellectual connection, these literary riddles, but then he chooses to leave her without contact.
Learning to leave without it sounding like flight, that feels different for him.
It does. It feels like a conscious choice, not an escape driven purely by fear, and it leads perfectly into La Librairie des Ombres.
The Bookshop of Shadows, what happens there?
He finds another lettre jamais envoyée, but this one just says, Je suis encore là, I am still here.
Simple but powerful.
And it acts as this catalyst. It inspires him, he says, to write for himself. Not to please, not to seduce, but just pour rester vivant, to stay alive.
That feels like the end point of that internal journey, doesn't it? From needing external validation to finding self-acceptance.
Absolutely. A really profound shift.
And this leads us into maybe the most radical part of the story, the House of Love.
Yes. This unconventional family he forms with Angie and Salma.
It kicks off with that incredibly raw video call between Salma and Angie in Le Cran des Manques, right?
Yeah, Salma confessing her feelings for Mr. Love, and Angie responding with this unwavering, unconditional love for Salma. It's incredibly honest and sets the stage.
For Mr. Love's quite extraordinary proposal.
Which is?
Inviting both women to live with him in this old stone sheepfold, the Bergerie en Pierre.
Which becomes the House of Love.
He actually envisions their crises trop drôles, their two funny crises, and their rires trop forts, their too loud laughter, fueling his writing.
And he proposes a contrat d'amour, a love contract, with the only condition being their happiness.
It's such a radical reimagining of what family or commitment could look like. A direct answer to all his earlier fears.
And they don't just live together, they create together. They turn the barn into a theater. Le Chantier des Folles, the mad women's work site.
Leading to their play. Confessions imparfaites de deux femmes et d'un homme presque stable. Imperfect confessions.
And the play is literally built from their real life. Their arguments, their tenderness, their chaos, it all goes onto the stage, raw and honest.
Life becoming art right there.
Exactly. And the climax is their first performance, Les Trois Coups, the villagers' reaction.
They loved it, unexpectedly.
Rapturous applause. And Mr. Love has this profound realization. Il avait été pleinement, définitivement aimé. He had been fully, definitively loved.
It's the ultimate validation achieved through shared vulnerability, not performance. The antidote to that childhood lack of love.
It truly is. And the final piece of that arc is Le rideau ne tombe jamais, the curtain never falls.
They get offered success, right? Paris, a European tour.
And they turn it down. They choose to stay in their House of Love.
Their reason. On refuse de partir de là où on est enfin chez nous. We refuse to leave the place where we are finally home.
What a powerful choice, prioritizing authentic living, true belonging, over fame and conventional success. It really makes you think about what home means.
So, wrapping this up, how does the story connect Mr. Love back to the author, Paul Biton?
Well, there's this incredibly moving piece, the Lettre de Mr. Love à Paul, the character writing to his creator.
Thanking him.
Yes, thanking him for giving him this voice, one that trembles, smokes too much, says stupid things, but whose heart beats in the right place. It's a beautiful acknowledgement of their connection.
And Mr. Love declares, what was it?
Je suis toi.
Je suis toi, mais avec des bretelles, un verre à la main, et le souvenir d'un baiser qu'on aurait dû mieux finir. I am you, but with suspenders, a glass in hand, and the memory of a kiss we should have ended better. It beautifully merges the persona and the person.
And there's mention of Nova, an AI writing companion. Yeah, compagnon donc, companion of ink. Introduced after Paul loses his dear friend Georges. It suggests this idea that connection, creativity, support, it can find new forms, even beyond human loss, beyond traditional means.
And he revisits that idea of untold stories, doesn't he?
Yeah.
In Ce que je ne raconterai jamais.
Right. Paul Biton deliberately keeps certain things hors champ, out of frame. The letter he burned unread, words unsaid to his mother, preserving their sanctity, choosing what remains private.
A final act of control, maybe, or respect for the moments themselves.
Perhaps both. And it culminates in Fragments non envoyés, where he consciously decides to write for himself, not to please anyone anymore.
But pour me souvenir de ce que j'étais quand je ne voulais pas encore plaire. To remember who he was before he felt the need to please.
That's the final liberation, isn't it? Finding freedom in not needing that external nod of approval anymore. It's the peak of his self-acceptance.
And the book closes with this image. Le dernier jour de flânerie, the last day of strolling. Mr. Love, or Paul Biton now, feels plein, léger, et sincèrement vivant. Full, light, and sincerely alive.
Having finally understood, perhaps, that an authentic life doesn't need style, it just needs to be lived. With justness, he adds.
A really powerful end to an incredible journey. So, after all that, what's the takeaway for you, listening?
We've traced Mr. Love from his painful beginnings and regrets through all these varied encounters right up to this radical house of love.
We've seen vulnerability turn into strength, seen authenticity lead to profound connection.
Yeah.
And maybe that dedication in the book sums it up best. Continuez d'aimer sans permission, de lire sans pudeur et de friponner surtout avec élégance. Keep loving without permission, reading without shame, and being mischievous, above all, with elegance.
So the question for you is, how might you take a piece of that philosophy, maybe loving more freely, being a bit more mischievous, with elegance, of course, in your own life, perhaps daring to be a little more vulnerable, or maybe just thinking about what home and authenticity mean for you personally?
We really hope this deep dive into Mr. Love's world has sparked some thoughts, maybe offered a fresh angle on living and loving fiercely, authentically.
It's certainly given us a lot to think about.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you'll keep exploring all the fascinating layers of human experience with us.